So welcome to the Clovis Chamber's Wake Up Clovis event. And we're just thrilled to have our guest speaker today, Anna Borgeas, the California 9/11 Memorial Executive Director. And Anna, if you don't mind, I'm just going to read a little bit of your bio off of your website, if that's okay.
Sure.
So Anna is a Fresno native, previously served as Vice President and COO of the Fresno Chamber of Commerce, and was responsible for all internal operations of the organization, including financial and employee management, overseeing 10 annual events and nearly a dozen monthly programs and committees. Earlier, Anna served as the CEO, COO, and interim CEO of the Central Valley Business Incubator, which developed technology startups, and she created and managed the organization's premier fundraising event, the Central Valley Stock Exchange. And you'll have to excuse my neighbor right next to us. The gardener's over there, so there's going to be a little bit of noise here. So I apologize. Bad timing, I know. Now, just a second here. Anna graduated, let's see, so excuse me. So Anna also served as government relations manager for the Workforce Investment Board and a financial underwriter for business and corporate loans for San Diego National Bank and Chevy Chase Bank. Anna graduated from the University of California, Santa Cruz as a double major in economics and history, and she earned her MBA from California State University, Fresno, where she was awarded the Dean's Medal. Anna also served as a professional development fellow in Armenia, researching economic development opportunities for the, and I'm going to mess up this word, nascent. Thank you, former Soviet nation. In her spare time, she loves creating memories with her family, gardening and traveling. She's married to California State Senator Andreas Borgeas and has 2 young sons. So that's a great bio. I pulled that off the website. I didn't tell you I was going to do that, but it allowed me to get to know you a little bit better. So thank you for being with us. And when I reached out to Anna, because, you know, I'm passionate about the history of our country and what it's gone through. I know the great work that Dave McDonald started over at Pelco with the 9/11 Memorial, and how the Cook family is taking that and really made it bigger and better. And really, I've been to the ceremony several times, and I just think it's wonderful. So I wanted to invite Anna to talk about what's happening at the 9/11 Memorial, how it's changed since the start of it in 2001, and just tell us about it so we can all share her passion. So Anna, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So let's just start out. What is the genesis of the memorial? How did it start?
So in 2001, David McDonald was actually in New York City in the first week of September, looking at his project that he had in the Twin Towers. As you know, they had Pelco and they had security cameras, and in the Twin Towers were his security cameras. So he was up in New York at the Twin Towers having dinner, I believe, at the Eyes of the World. And then he moved, and then he came back to Fresno. And then a couple days later, September 11th happened. So needless to say, this had an incredible impact on him. Very moved. Obviously, the entire country was moved. And so later that year in December, in an effort to honor our first responders who spent months and months in the rubble, in the burning metal and in the soot, doing a search and rescue and then a recovery, he flew out hundreds of first responders. He chartered a couple of planes, 2 to 3 planes, and brought them out to dedicate that memorial at Pelco, which was a beautiful stone monument with a dedication and a flagpole that was at 110 feet tall, representative of the number of floors that are in the Twin Towers, or that were in the Twin Towers. And since then, every year there has been a committed group of citizens that have maintained an annual commemoration at the 9/11 Memorial in Clovis. Fast forward to the 2000s, later 2000s or so, Pelco was sold to Schneider Electric, and year over year, the budget that was allowed for this type of an event was slowly chipped away at. And shortly thereafter, the Cook family purchased the campus, and there was a renewed sentiment to ensure that the remembrance of our first responders would maintain. And so in 2019, an official organization was formed around this group of committed citizens who have been doing this for 18 years, so that we would have a formal board, and we would also have a formal 501c3 filing. And I think it happened in record time. We formed in February, and by June that summer, we got our 501c3 status from the IRS, which is unheard of to get it that quickly. And sometime in February, Jerry Cook came up to me and said, Anna, we want you to be part of the 9/11 memorial. And to be honest, I was shocked when we started talking about it, the effect that it had on me emotionally. It was almost 20 years later. And yet I still remember that day, that morning, those minutes, being glued to the TV, the feeling that I had, and it came back in a flood. And so without hesitation, I said yes, because it's such an incredible organization led by incredible volunteers doing really, really good work for our community. So, oh, you're on mute.
I muted myself, so you went into the gardener. So thank you for telling me. So
No
that
problem.
brings us to today. So why don't you, kind of, there's been some phasing of the memorial and how it's grown over the years. So why don't you talk about kind of phase one, from some where you took it from where maybe Dave McDonald left it to what's happened since that point.
So as I mentioned, there was a renewed sentiment and an obligation and a responsibility felt by the Cook family to ensure that this memorial stays alive. And so in 2019, we embarked on an expansion, which we like to call phase one. And in it, we developed and built to a 1/100th scale, Twin Towers and the Pentagon. And on the Twin Towers are etched all the names of all the first responders that died that day. Very, very powerful to see. Oftentimes you'll see firefighters that were father and son, like senior and junior. And all those names that were etched on there, as well as on the Pentagon, which I believe up to 150 civilians and military died when the plane crashed in the Pentagon that day. And so in our process, we also developed this beautiful bronze statue, life-size bronze statue of two firefighters answering the call, running towards these Twin Towers. That, of course, was phase one. And we also included a lot of storyboards. And the point of that is the California 9/11 Memorial Board's mission is to honor, educate, and remember. The education component comes in through these storyboards. The storyboards were written to give history of the Twin Towers. I didn't know this because I was researching it to write these storyboards, but the Twin Towers actually came about from the World's Fair in the early 1900s. And there was a section in a tent that was called World Peace Through Trade. And shortly thereafter, several decades later, then you started the World Trade Center. And then, of course, the Twin Towers were built in the 70s. And so in this process, we wanted to also ensure that we can educate our younger generations who now that they're starting school or graduating high school have absolutely no idea what 9/11 was.
Right.
And so that was phase one. We started off with the Twin Towers. We also had the Pentagon and the storyboards, and which included timelines and information on September 11th. Beautiful landscaping done. And we also included a calorie pear tree, which was also known as the survivor tree. And I'll get to that in just a second, because we started phase two. And phase two was, of course, supposed to be done and completed last year, but 2020 brought us COVID. And so all that kind of came to a halt. So this year we've implemented phase two, and phase two will complete the memorial with our third monument, which is the Flight 93, which is known as the Todd Beamer Let's Roll Memorial, where all passengers on the flight were killed after a counterattack by civilian heroes who decided that they weren't going to let this happen on their watch. And so it was the only plane that did not hit its intended target, which was likely either the White House or the Capitol. And so with phase 3, we've included 3 new bronze statues, including a military officer, a wounded warrior with a support dog, as well as a police officer. And the story of the police officer is really interesting. Her name is Officer Moira Smith, and she was the first officer to call into police headquarters at NYPD to say that this was happening. She ran over to the Twin Towers and saved thousands of people coming out of the Twin Towers and guiding them through the stairwells to safety. Unfortunately, Officer Moira Smith did not make it. She was in the building when the building collapsed. But because of her heroic actions and her bravery, she saved thousands of people. She was also the only female police officer that died that day on September 11th. We do know, though, that unfortunately the after effects to our police and to our firefighters for spending weeks upon weeks and months over months at ground zero in their search and rescue and then their recovery, that there are many more first responders that are perishing because of health effects that have happened from the time that they were there. So with that, we have our phase 2. And I mentioned I was going to come back to the survivor tree. In February of 2020, the California 9/11 Memorial was gifted a sapling from the original survivor tree. And the story of the survivor tree is that the calorie pear tree was badly damaged, obviously, at impact on 9/11. It was the last living thing that was pulled from the rubble at ground zero and was taken to a nursery across the river to be nursed and was then replanted at ground zero. And what the National 9/11 Memorial has done is that they gift these saplings to various 9/11 memorials around the country. And then they also have a program which they gift it to places around the world that have experienced great trauma. And so every year they select 3 places that they will also gift based on, extraordinary circumstances that have been overcome. And so we're really proud to have one of those saplings, and that will be incorporated into phase 2. And it will be very fittingly planted near the wounded warrior, because we know that our military have come back with both visible and invisible wounds. And that sapling that represents resilience and survivorship and strength is juxtaposed next to what we can see. So it's really an amazing memorial with beautiful, thoughtful designs put forward. And I hope that everybody here has a moment to go out and see it. And it is open to the public at all times. So this is an easy place to go if you wanted to take a quick jaunt in the afternoon, early evening, of course, because it's hot. Beautiful park-like setting, so you're welcome to take like a little meal. You can sit on benches, you can sit on the grassy areas. It's just a beautiful reminder of the resilience that is America.
Well, Anna, you talked about breathtaking statues and that you're bringing in. What, if you don't mind me asking, what is the process that your committee goes through to pick, the statue, or you pick the female police officer? What's the decision-making process on what you want to incorporate out there?
Mm-hmm. So we wanted to make sure that we were representing all of the different branches of the first responders. So we have our firefighters, we have our police officer, which we didn't have in the first phase. We have our military. So we wanted to make sure that we were able to represent all those. And we have a military statue holding a folded flag with also a storyboard that outlines what it means to have the folded flag. And I say all this because what we're trying to do is remind people what America felt like on 9/12. There was this incredible spirit of unity. There was not a flag at the stores that you can buy because they were all draped all over America, everywhere. People were standing in lines that were miles long to give blood. There were people that were at ground zero handing out bananas to our firefighters because it was a fruit that was easy to eat to stay clean. There were women that would come and change the boots of our firefighters that were burned through because they were walking on smoldering metal while they were sleeping after a 24-hour shift. What we're trying to show is America's unity in 9/12 and how that unity really came about because of the heroism of our first responders. And so as a committee, our desire was to be representative of everybody. And knowing that as far as the bronze statues, it's often difficult to commission a statue that's in the likeness of an individual. And it's a really difficult process for the family, right? Be able to have somebody that has the likeness of somebody that you've known and you've loved. So we treaded very carefully on and doing that, and was very instrumental in bringing in her widow, Officer Smith, also an officer, and asking for his permission to be able to do this because we thought it was a very powerful story. She was the first police officer to report this to headquarters. She was the only female to perish. And we know that there are representations across the US of our firefighters and our police, but there wasn't anybody that was representative of Moira Smith, who stands out. And so we wanted to make sure that we were to bring that in because, as I mentioned, this memorial is also for education and truthfully to educate our youngsters. I feel like such an old person when I say that, but to educate our youngsters, to let them know that there is bravery and heroism in our first responders, and it comes in all different sizes and shapes.
So what, again, the process, and just because I'm very interested in it. So from, you talked to Officer Smith's widow, you got the likeness, the permission, you commissioned an artist to come up with the look and the art. And then do you use the same sculptor to do
Yes.
all the statues? And how long does that take to make one?
It takes a long time. So our first sculpture, which was the two firefighters answering the call running towards the Twin Towers that was in phase 1, was done by John Parsons. And we had started that process probably in February. And he had developed the clay modeling for this one for another memorial. But it's a limited edition, 1 of 10. We're number 2, and we'll be the only one in California that has it. So we were lucky when we started this process in February of 2019 that John Parsons, our sculptor and our artist, was able to develop and send that to the foundry because these take well over a year to develop. And so our first bronze statue was much easier as a process because there was one already, it was modeled already. The other 3 ones took a lot longer, and those we knew were going to take a lot longer. And because of COVID, and once it hits, I mean, we were slated in October of 2019, we started the process for the development of the other bronze statues, recognizing we wanted representation from all of our first responders there. And we started that process then, but then of course, COVID hit, organizations, businesses couldn't operate, and nothing could have been guaranteed. Nobody knew if we were going to be having events. And so we kind of halted on that process, but we were still working towards the design and the development. So when we started in 2021 this year, we knew that we would be able to at least get this process started because the foundries were operating and John Parsons was designing. So he is an amazing artist. And right now our bronze statues are in a foundry in Colorado. And our goal that gives, I think, everybody on the board, including myself, anxiety, is that these bronze statues will be in California, delivered, I believe, that Tuesday. We will be installing them the Tuesday before September 11th, which is on a Saturday this year. Granted, we also have a press conference of the unveiling of these statues on Wednesday with Officer Moira Smith's widow present at the unveiling. So fingers crossed that everything works out well, that we'll be able to present this to the community.
Well, you just gave us kind of a teaser for this year. So why don't you, if you want to share with us, the 2020 ceremony was canceled. Or I think, yeah. And then so 2021, you've been planning. So why don't you tell us what we can look forward to this year?
Wonderful. So the 2020, in the light of all that was going on with COVID, we decided that we were going to not have a public ceremony, but we did not want to not have a ceremony. So we had a skeleton crew of about 12 to 15 first responders, all fully distanced with our wreaths. And we continued our commitment to honor and remember. So in 2020, we did have an event, but it was not open to the public. We were able to live stream it, which was wonderful, through our social media platforms. And so we were still able to keep our commitment. This year, we're going to knock on wood, provided things continue well and don't get worse, as we're seeing with what's going on with the Delta, is that this year our plan is to have our event and to be able to really bring in not just our local first responders, but really make this a regional event. This is truly the California 9/11 Memorial. And so we don't want it to be a Clovis Memorial or a Fresno County Memorial. We really want it to be the California 9/11 Memorial. And a little known fact is that all 4 of those planes that took off on that fateful day, every single one of them were headed to California. And the reason why those hijackers and the terrorists chose those planes is because there is going to be the highest amount of jet fuel, which can provide the biggest impact and the greatest destruction. So when you consider the connectivity of our nation, especially on that day, that is very symbolic when you see that. And so this year, our goal is to be able to do our unveiling, to show the community that this is truly a community treasure that can be used and visited from all over the state, because it is so beautifully done. It is a community-driven project. As I mentioned, everybody on the board, they're volunteers and have been for 2 decades. We have people that were part of the first original ceremony from 2001 in December that are still part of our board, working with the people to get the program and the commemoration going. And I know that there hasn't been the prompt for this question, but I'm going to take this moment to start saying it anyways. So on our board, we also are proud to have Dr. Kitty Catania, who was a retired Deputy Superintendent of Schools, as well as the current Deputy Superintendent of Schools, Hank Gutierrez. And I say this because our mission is to honor, educate, and remember. The education point, though, is paramount, because we can't do honor and remember unless we educate, because we all know what history books look like in high school. I know when I was learning about Pearl Harbor, there was a page at most about Pearl Harbor in the larger context of World War II. Pearl Harbor happened December 7th. It was America's entry into World War II. World War II ended in 1945, right? You can kind of see the moment in time that our students are going to learn about 9/11. And so bringing in the superintendent of schools and Jim Iovino and his deputy superintendents, we are able to really reach out to our students. And in 2000, I keep saying last year, but in 2019, we launched the Art and Poetry Contest. And this Art and Poetry Contest has a prompt for students that says, how did America come together on 9/12? Which is exactly what we're trying to reinstate in people's minds, the unity of the American spirit. And so students in 2019 submitted, we had probably over 150 submissions of students from around the county. And one student won the grand prize, which was a trip to New York City for the student and their chaperone or family members. And this year, we're really proud, and that was actually awarded to a Roosevelt student, did an amazing art piece. And these are all judged by first responders. So nobody on the board that's not a first responder. We bring in first responders from the different departments. We invite them to judge these pieces and ultimately choose their grand prize winner. And so this year, we recognized that we wanted to give 2 trips to students, knowing that this is a life-altering tip. But we also brought in 2 trips, additional trips to their teachers. And the reason why we did this is because we didn't want this prompt or this competition to be a one-off that a student found maybe in a counselor's office that was printed as a flyer, took it and decided to submit. We wanted to give the teachers an incentive as well to say, this is an assignment. My class of 30 that I have 4 of you, so I have 120 students, you guys are all going to submit. Because what we can do then is truly reach the students and teach them what happened that day. And the number one refrain that we had from students in the 2019 competition was, I had no idea. I had to Google this. I didn't know what happened. And to take it a step further, one thing that I find is remarkable is that with September 11th, it's a little different compared to what we all know about World War I and World War II. There was nominal filming that happened in World War I. We had some film from World War II, right? We had some of that information, and we've all seen those similar images. But now today, if a student's curiosity is piqued, the information is at their fingertips. So you can imagine what happened with a 17-year-old who decided they were going to partake in this competition because they want to go to New York City. They want to go to the Big Apple. You know, maybe their intention was the prize, not necessarily to learn, and that's perfectly fine. Because the moment they started Googling September 11th, and I would recommend that everybody do that here, you can see everything that gets pulled up. They see the news clips. They see people running from the rubble. They see first responders running towards the danger to bring people out. They see the aftermath. They hear the primary sources, the stories that people had about what they experienced. And that is really powerful because students have infinite access to information. And with piquing their interest, we're teaching them something that they wouldn't have learned with detail. And for us, that is all the money. That is all the money. That allows us to honor and to remember, because without that education, those 2 components would die with us. They would really, truly die with us. So we're very proud about all those different things that we're able to bring forward.
Well, and it's amazing and fitting that you bring in those educational programs. But for those that on this call that have not been to one of these very powerful ceremonies, can you kind of take us into the ceremony? Because there's a start, a middle and an end like anything, and there's some just very powerful moments in the ceremony. So can you kind of walk us through some of those key components of the ceremony and why they're included?
Sure. So in 2019, as I mentioned, we started this art and poetry contest. And so the ceremony is kind of 2 parts. And then this year, we've kind of combined them to happen successively. So we have the morning event, which is the somber commemoration. And then we have a short intermission so that there can be fellowship and pictures and memorial viewing. And then we go into the One Voice. And so with specificity, our morning commemoration, we ask that everybody arrive before 8:30 and are settled in their seats. So highly recommended to come out around 8:10, find your parking, get to the memorial. There is some seating, but it's mostly a standing only event. And we start our event, I think the first horses move probably by 8:40, because at 8:46, we start with the first 911 calls. And we start with that at 8:46 because that is the exact time where the first plane hit the first tower. And then throughout the commemoration, which lasts about 30 minutes, 35 minutes or so, it is steeped in both military and in uniformed history, where we have a gun salute, where we have the wreaths that have the sashes of the 5 first responders that were there, or the 4 first responders: fire department, police department, port police, military, and then the civilians. We lay the wreaths. You have a procession that comes through. We have our pipes and drums that are played. We have a bugler. And then we also have our narrator, Dave Koss, who was with CAL FIRE and is now over on Central Coast, that comes out every year to be able to participate in this event. We also have our bugler, I found out yesterday, who is retired, lives in Hawaii on the Big Island, but comes out and will fly out to be able to participate in our events tomorrow, or on the 11th. So our morning event is a somber commemoration steeped in tradition and in history. And as I mentioned, we have our intermission. And then we start the One Voice event, which is more the student-driven event. And that is really a celebration of all things America. So we have choirs, they're singing. We have both Fresno State Choir, Clovis North choirs. We have various student choirs that are there. And then we also do the presentation of the grand prize winners. So I believe this Friday is the Clovis Farmers Market, and you will find a booth there with postcards that are made up of either the art or the poetry that was submitted. And these were our finalists that won. And you'll have some of the students there that can sign and autograph their work. And they will be announced in the later morning event on September 11th that starts at 10.
Wow, I mean, it's really impressive. So what is the California 9/11 memorials? What is, not that you want to say one's better or not better than others, but what is its significance amongst the other memorials in our country? I mean, it's impressive to me. I have to imagine it would be impressive to anybody in the United States, except for maybe Ground Zero in that memorial.
Certainly. And as I had mentioned, that this is amongst one of the biggest, most active, I believe, memorials. Just to give you a little background, the National 9/11 Memorial is actually starting a young professionals group to reinstitute life into memorials that were developed shortly after 9/11 that have slowly kind of faded within their communities. Mm-hmm. And I use that as a precursor to show that this memorial is active and alive and pushing forward. And so in comparison to others, I think the beauty of our memorial, and I say our memorial because it truly is our memorial, is that first and foremost, its location. It's housed on a campus that has thousands of employees. So if you walk through at any given day, you'll see people sitting at the memorial, musing, having lunch, chatting, walking around. It's very active and it's very live. It's not in the corner of a town far, far away. It has a very active board, as we talked about the education component in 2020, right before our lockdown. We actually brought out an educational specialist from the National 9/11 Memorial and hosted an event for teachers here in Fresno County so that they can understand the resources that are available to them for 9/11. And so we're just constantly innovating and trying to bring and breathe continuous life into our memorial. When things get back to normal, a little bit more, our goal with our educational partners on our board is to turn this into a field trip that would be interactive, like with firefighters that will say, all right, this is how you suit up. I want you to drag a hose. See how heavy this is. How quickly can you suit up? Let me show you what I've learned, what I've trained with. So it's all these things that we're trying to continuously keep it innovative and relevant that I think makes it slightly different than some of the other memorials around the country, which tend to be a monument that's there that you might happen upon.
Yeah. What, because we, as a Clovis Chamber, we care about our community and the vitality of our business community and also attracting tourism to our community and our county. How far do people come from across the nation to visit this memorial?
So for our 9/11 memorial this year, we have people coming from all over. We have somebody coming up, of course, from New York. We have people, visiting from Nevada. We have people coming from Northern California. So from Florida. So we have people who have ties that want to come. And then we have people who know what we're doing and they don't really have a tie, but want to come because they know what we're doing. And I think that speaks a lot to not just necessarily being a reason to come, but when you have people that are here in our community, take them there. It's a quick little trip and say, hey, let me show you this memorial for 9/11 that we have. It's in our 20th anniversary. Come check it out. And then let's go to downtown Clovis for some ice cream and some burgers. That's what we can do as a community, just to bring it to the forefront of people. I think that if anybody hasn't gone to the memorial since 2019, you'll be shocked at what you see. If you went in 2019 and you come out again this year, again, you'll be shocked. And I think that that's a beautiful thing. And it's a testament to the community. This has been a privately funded expansion. We've had donations from across our county and beyond for our operations. As I had mentioned a little bit earlier, that the commemoration slowly kind of got chipped away at its budgeting, because it's not a cheap endeavor to put forward an event like this every year, where in 2019, we probably had about 2,000 people. So you have to imagine jumbotrons and tents and chairs and security and setup and tear down and bleachers and technology and all those things that come into putting in an event. Golf carts that are electric so they don't make too much noise, as opposed to the gas powered ones that can be disruptive during a commemoration. All those things take a lot of effort and a lot of money. And so our community has really stepped up with their donations to be able to come forward. This year, we started a GoFundMe page, which has been wonderful because we're seeing donations that are coming in at high levels, $10,000, and at $25. And that is powerful because you truly see that it is a community-driven event and effort.
Well, that's wonderful. And I did, they have a wonderful website, which if you want to share, if you want to share the website's address with us, Anna.
California911memorial.com.
Okay,
pretty easy.
Perfect. And there is a donation button on there. And, we urge you to, if you're able to donate. Anna,
I should say that there is a match going on right now. So for starting October 11th through September 11th, the Cook family will match any donation given in that period. So double your dollars, guys. Okay. Double your dollars.
Anna, so you talked about the bronzes and they take about a year to make, develop and make. So do you already have some in the pipeline for 2022, 2023, and 2024? What does the future hold for the expansion of the memorial?
Good question. Good question. I think that will develop over time to see what other additions we'll have. I think that we also want to keep it clean and elegant. And I think our next phase is probably going to be further development of the communication, probably QR codes, videos, ways that people can listen and learn that don't take heavy technology, but allows them to learn something a little bit more. Expanding on our ability to bring people to the event, students and people from abroad or outside of our area and our state. We're also looking at ways to where this can truly become a venue for events. Last year, or in 2020, we were slated to have the Fallen Heroes event there, which would be a great, perfectly partnered event to be able to have it at the California 9/11 Memorial. We're also looking at having the resiliency group to come out and host concerts. And so we're looking to expand the utility of the memorial to bring people there. So this can be a gorgeous place to have an evening event with great lighting, a great setting. You can have tables and chairs kind of set out all around the memorial. You can have a place for people to come and visit. So those are really, I think, the things that the next phase of the memorial is creating it as a venue space for people to come.
Okay. When I was at the 2019 ceremony, and I was just so impressed with the representatives from, the Clovis PD and Fresno PD and Fire and CAL FIRE, and they're in their beautiful dress uniforms. When you approached, those different agencies to come out and participate in the memorial, it was 20 years ago. So some of these officers, were kids, way back then. What is their sense of commitment to some of the, younger officers that want, they come out for maybe the first time and they're part of the ceremony? What do you feel from them?
There is an unequivocal yes, we want to participate. Because even those younger officers that may not have been alive or were 5 or 6 years old and didn't really have the capacity to understand what was really happening, they're a firefighter, they're a police officer, they know the history of their department. And this is a major part of their history. So even if it's interesting, because there's a much more enthusiastic desire for involvement. And we also work with the cadets. So we've got the police and the fire academy cadets that come out and volunteer in helping the event. So again, we're kind of keeping it alive. We're working with the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts to be able to have them participate in our events. So we're bringing in these various groups so that, again, it's that little seed that gets planted. They say, okay, well, my group, we're going to do this. Let me Google it a little. And we all know the power of Google, and we can harness it for the good.
Well, good. Well, it is impressive, and just the thoughtful care that these folks are putting into the ceremony. I mean, it is a very emotional ceremony. It's something that if you have not been, please go out this year. It will change you. You'll want to come out every year. You'll want to bring your children, which, part of me feels that they should just call off school that day and have all the kids come out, because it is very powerful.
Well, I am happy to say that we passed, and we've got Shannon on here and Jenna, that we passed SB 254, which is a state bill put forward by a fellow that I know, our state senator. And it is a bill that was mirrored after the New York bill, which was a recommendation for teachers in the classroom to observe a moment of silence for 9/11. And again, we keep talking about that little seed. So imagine classrooms full of students saying, well, what are we doing? Why? Even if they hadn't gone to that part in American history yet, say they're a 8th grader, or they glossed over it in freshman year, and so they're not really understanding it as a sophomore. Again, they're going to start Googling, they're going to start learning, and it's going to make an impact. Small, big, medium, it will make an impact. So we're really proud of that, and that it was brought forward and passed unanimously with Shannon. How many co-sponsors? You remember? It was a lot. It was like over half of the state senate. I think it was like 25, which is unheard of.
Yeah.
So.
Well, good. Well, I've just been thrilled to have you with us today. Let me just check to see if we have a couple, some positive comments, from Kurt Seavey, who's one of our board members on the Clovis Chamber. He just thought that this was a wonderful wake up, Clovis, and we all need to share this information about the 9/11 memorial. I know as a Clovis Chamber, and I don't want to call this a hidden gem in our backyard, because it's not hidden, but it's certainly something that we need to continue to get the word out about, get people at the ceremony. I mean, it is a life changer. It makes you really appreciate our history, our first responders certainly, and then where we are in the world today. Anna, any last statements or sentiments you want to share with our group today?
The only thing I could say is please come out. And it doesn't just have to be on September 11th. If you're driving by and you happen to be in the area, you could just say, you know what, let me just swing by. Swing by. You'll be amazed at what you see, and you'll probably appreciate it even more in your own quiet solitude.
Yeah.
It is a beautiful place to visit. It's been meticulously manicured and maintained. And the beauty is that all these maintenance groups, they're mostly like volunteer people that, or businesses that volunteer their services for the maintenance. And it's beautiful to see. So I encourage people to come out, certainly for our event the day of. But like I said, our goal is to make this a living memorial that is beyond 1 or 2 days or a week worth of events that happen centered around September 11th. The goal is to get people to come out, to show their family and friends what we have here, to bring them from out of town. Hey, let's just go, like I said, swing by and let's go grab a burger in downtown Clovis.
Yeah. Well, we certainly have to pay homage to Dave McDonald, this was his vision, the Cook family for carrying it on in such a respectful and fantastic manner, and for you, Anna, for as the executive director and doing all these wonderful things to grow it and to make it so important for us. So we thank you very much for that.
Thank you so much for having me, and I'm happy to stick around to answer any questions, but I hope that everybody takes a moment to swing by at some point to see your memorial.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you very much. The comments are, thank you, Anna. It's been very informative from Lorenzo Rios. Great job bringing attention to this wonderful program. I know Lorenzo's is on the board.
Yes, he is.
And so we're proud of it. We're going to be out there, and we want everybody to see it. So thank you very much. We are going to do a little bit of, we're recording this program. We're trying to fill in our YouTube channel for the Clovis Chamber, and so we're going to share this on our YouTube channel. So if that's okay,
Perfect.
If that's
Of
okay
course.
with you, and we'll certainly get that out to all of our chamber members also, so they can see it. Okay.
Great.
Thank you very much, and I will.
Thank you so much.
I will certainly see you on 9/11 out there.
Wonderful. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you very much, Anna. Bye-bye. Bye, everybody.